Hello and welcome to another Stopping Socialism video. I'm Donald Kendal, joined as always by Justin Haskins. Justin, the Great Reset. For anyone that's been kind of following us on our website, stoppingsocialism.com, or any of our social media, you'll be seeing these things with this little graphic here of the Great Reset. It's probably part one. This will probably be part one of our longer series about the Great Reset and what we're kind of dubbing 21st century socialism. So you're going to really want to stay tuned to these things because besides like the Karl Marx stuff that we talk about when we have those goofy videos about AOC and her tax debt that she owes that are kind of like, they're just kind of funny to talk about. This is like really important. So without further ado, Justin, what is the Great Reset?
Right. So I think the best way to explain it, for those of you who remember Agenda 21 and what a big deal Agenda 21 was, and for those of you who know what the Green New Deal is, and I think just about everybody who's watching this probably knows what the Green New Deal is, you got to imagine if you took those two things and you combined them together, what would you end up with? And I think that's essentially what the Great Reset is, okay? This is an attempt. We all know the Green New Deal is essentially an attempt in America to move much, much closer to socialism, right? They want to, there's an environmental component to it, obviously. They want to get rid of all the fossil fuel industry. They want to, eliminate cows. They want to get rid of air travel. They want all this crazy stuff related to fossil fuels. But in addition to that, they also want all these other socialist programs like basic income programs, and they want federal jobs guarantee and free college tuition and all of this stuff, right? All packaged together as a plan to save the environment and create social justice. Like it's all one big package. That's what the Great Reset is, except on a global scale. All right. So the way we came up with this is why we're saying it's 21st century socialism. All right. Now, the way that we learned about the Great Reset was very recently, earlier in June. Some of the world's most powerful people got together and had a meeting, a virtual meeting hosted by the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum, you may not know that name, but learn that name. It's really important. They're an incredibly powerful nonprofit organization that's based, I believe, in Switzerland. Every year, they hold a huge event that you probably have heard of, even though you didn't necessarily know that this is what it was, in Davos. They hold this every year in January. I think it's in January every year. It will be in January this upcoming year. And it brings in some of the richest, most powerful people from all over the world. Heads of state go to this. Celebrities go to it. Activists, all kinds of famous people. They usually have a few thousand people. It's very, very exclusive. You have to pay tons and tons of money to be a part of it. And it's it's one of these places where it's just rife with conspiracy theories and all this kind of stuff because you're getting all these very rich, very powerful people together. And they have lots of backroom meetings and they have lots of meetings in public as well. And the whole point is to bring the world's most powerful people together to come up with plans that in their minds will make the world a better place, right? But it tends to be very focused on left-wing solutions to problems, which is not super surprising. So they had a meeting in June, a virtual meeting, where they laid out this Great Reset proposal. And the idea behind the Great Reset is they want to completely get rid of global capitalism. They're openly saying this is not my interpretation of it. This is the actual thing that they want to do. And they want to get rid of capitalism, and they want to replace it with a sort of undefined, hazy system that's focused on all the social justice language that you hear all the time, a rebalancing of economies around the world, economies that are focused on being sustainable and equitable and just and all of that stuff. They want to get rid of income inequality and all of the language that you usually hear. And they want to do this through a Green New Deal-like focus on completely revamping economies. So they want to get rid of a lot of the foundational structures in economies, and they want to rebuild in sort of a Green New Deal eco-socialist economies where the focus is on building wind and solar and running wind and solar and having these massive, massive renewable energy facilities all over these different parts of the world, so that we can both simultaneously fix all these social injustices and save the planet from global warming. Global warming is a really important part of all of this. And the reason they're rolling this out now, and the reason they're calling it a great reset, is because what they want to do is reset the global capitalist economy that we see today. They want to reset it. And they think now is the right time for this because of what's happened with COVID-19. And they're very open about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got several quotes here, and the articles, you could find them on our website, stoppingsocialism.com. Prince Charles, we have a golden opportunity to seize something good from this COVID-19 crisis. Its unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change. Chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, says the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. And then there's like several other high-level people saying these same words: great reset, great reset, great reset. And it seems like they're getting buy-in, not from just like these global elites, but like massive corporations, worldwide corporations too.
Right. And I think that's the thing. It's not just Klaus Schwab and Prince Charles here by themselves. The other people who spoke at this event, the UN Secretary General, it's the head of the United Nations, spoke. There were representatives from Greenpeace International that spoke about this. CEOs and presidents, as you said, from massive multinational corporations, some of the most powerful corporations and companies in the world were represented at this, including Microsoft, BP, that's the oil and gas company. You had the International Monetary Fund, the head of that was there as well, or one of the key people from that. And so this is, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's what it sounds like. I understand. You get all these people together, and some of the world's most powerful people, you get them all together in Davos, Switzerland, and that's the plan. In January 2021, they're going to roll out the specifics of this plan at the next meeting in Davos. They just, at this point, have only announced sort of the bare bones of it. And they're going to come up with the details of it. And I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's not a conspiracy theory. This is them openly saying this is going to happen. This is conspiracy fact. That's what it is. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take anyone's word for it. Go look at what they're saying. Look at their words. See what they are saying. I am not reinterpreting their ideas here for the most part. For the most part, I'm just taking what they're saying at face value. The one way that I am sort of reading between the I am reading between the lines is it's certain people in the World Economic Forum will refer to their system as a capitalist system. You won't find them saying we want socialism. What you'll do is you'll see them say they want all these socialist policies. They want the Green New Deal. You'll find that. They want wealth taxes, gigantic wealth taxes to help with income inequality, not because they need the money, but because of income inequality. They'll talk about massive regulations. They'll talk about social justice. They'll talk about rebalancing economies. They'll talk about everything you hear from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders all the time, but they don't call it socialism. They call it a different kind of capitalism.
Right.
So they deride the current kind of capitalism we have. They call that shareholder capitalism. And they have what they're calling stakeholder capitalism. And they're packaging this as, let's get rid of capitalism, just the current capitalism, and we'll have a new kind of capitalism, one where the government's in charge of just about everything, and we're going to have massive government programs, and we're going to spend trillions of dollars we don't have, and all the things that people in America who call themselves socialists say they support, they're also supporting it, but they don't call themselves socialists.
Well, okay, so let's get into the weeds a little bit here. I mean, just on its face, if you were to stop listening to this video right now, just like the global elites going to Davos to figure out how to restructure society and the economy in the way that they want. That's scary enough. Okay, you can take that's your takeaway from this video. That's great. But let's go into the weeds a little bit on like basically what this great reset and the stakeholder capitalism would look like. So we talked about this a little bit before, and maybe you can elaborate on it. But it was basically they want to move the economy away from a system that is based on profit and more towards a system that rewards a more holistic way of dealing with the global economy. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Right. So one of the speakers actually had a quote that fits, I think, pretty well into that. This is from Sharon Burrow. She's the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation. This is a very big union representative, a very powerful union representative. And she says, we need to design policies to align with investment in people and the environment. But above all, the longer term perspective is about what? Rebalancing economies. She says later on, we want an end to the profit at all costs mentality. That's what you were referring to before. Because if we don't build an economic future with a sustainable framework in which we are respectful of our planetary boundaries and the need to change our energy and technology systems, then we will not have a living planet for human beings. So this, I think, kind of captures the real meat of what they're looking for here, right? They want to rebalance economies. That's the main goal. That's what she just said. But she also simultaneously said, we have to create this sort of, we got to get rid of this profit at all costs way of thinking about things and focus instead on saving the planet. Well, in a way, that's kind of confusing because I thought the goal was rebalancing economies. Now we've suddenly shifted to saving the planet is the goal. This is the kind of language that you're going to see throughout all of these great reset presentations, or most of them. They're saying we can have private ownership of property. That's okay. But only if those people are doing the right things.
Yeah.
Well, and how do we know that they're doing the right things? Well, because we, the collective, have decided that they're doing the right things. And they've decided the right things are saving the planet from existential crisis of climate change. That's one of the right things that they've done. But there are other right things too that they say, like paying people fair wages, making sure that companies are responsible for providing people with great benefits and not discriminating against people, and all these different things that they have in mind, right? So they've got all these different characteristics of what they consider to be responsible companies. And this is the key. It's not just that they want to create regulations. They want to invest massive investments, what they're calling investments, just government handouts, to the companies that they like, that are the responsible companies, and then eliminate all the companies by default, by just not giving them money, the companies that they don't like.
Yes.
And one of the clear examples of this is the fossil fuel industry. They don't like fossil fuel industry. Get rid of them. And instead, we're going to give all this money. We're going to drive fossil fuels out of business. We're going to give all this money to these green energy companies because they're the good guys.
Right.
And so they're controlling the economy without actually taking over anyone's business.
This is probably one of the most important points of this entire thing here, because in our classic system where it's just based off of profit, that's a way to characterize. Make a caricature of our system where it's basically the individuals that are participating in the market are the ones that are driving it. People like this product. Hey, that company does well, right? This now takes that driving force of the economy out of the hands of the individual purchaser or, whatever, and puts it into the hands of these people that get to determine who gets invested. Who gets this money? If you were doing all of these things that are on our checklist, hey, you get this money. But Justin, where does this money come from? I'm wondering.
Right, and that's the key. So remember, if we don't have a profit at all, if we're getting rid of profit at all costs mentality, well, then what happens to companies when they're not earning a profit but they're doing the right thing? Right? What happens to them? So are we really going to punish all these companies and their shareholders for doing the right thing in their mind?
No.
Well, no, of course we can't.
Investment.
We can't do that. So what we do is we pump them full of government money to reward them, right? So by doing this, you control, what they want to do is totally change the landscape of how we think about which companies are successful and which companies aren't. It's not about, do you make money? That's not the key factor. The factor is, are you doing the things that they want you to do? Are you protecting the planet? Are you paying people enough money? Are you doing all those things? If you're doing those things, then we'll reward you with money to make up for the fact that you otherwise wouldn't be profitable.
Right.
And that's the point. And in fact, this isn't just, well, they just kind of arbitrarily look and say, well, this company over here, we think that they're doing the right thing, so we're going to give them money. That's not how it works. They actually want to build a whole new system, a whole new way of evaluating companies to determine which companies are good and which companies are not good. And normally you would just say, look at profits. They don't want to look at profits, right? So what they want to do is create a whole new system where instead of just looking at profits, they're looking at profit plus all these other things that they like. And they reward the companies through some sort of scoring system or something like that. The companies that are acting responsibly and, aren't wasting money too, in addition to acting responsibly and not ruining the planet and not doing all these different things that fit in with their goals, they're going to get rewarded with government money. Everyone else is going to be eliminated. And by doing this, they are in effect controlling the economy because, of course, what does it, the entire economy? Because whatever they think is a good company or a bad company, the right thing or the wrong thing, that can change any day of the week. And that can be expansive. It can be massive. It can be right down to are you hiring the right percentage of your employees in this particular minority group? If not, then you're not a good company. Like, it could be as simple as that.
Right. How much energy are you getting from wind or solar or anything? It could be changed on a whim. But yeah, so it's taking the control out of just the individual consumer and putting it to this faceless organization. And this is kind of why we're talking about it as 21st century socialism, because they don't need to literally own the means of production anymore, like back in the Soviet Union era. They can control the entire economy and society just by doing this. So they get to pick the winners and losers. They get to pick what companies they want to invest in or pump money into. But my question is, where does that money come from, Justin? They're not going to just tax people, right? They're not going to do this through tax money. Where's this money come from?
Right. Well, that's really the secret to all of this, because you might look at this and say, well, what's the difference between this and just having lots of regulations? Isn't that all you guys are saying? Why can't they just regulate these companies? Why do they need to give them any money? Well, because in the past, that's what we would see from these left-wing governments. They would create regulations and systems and all these things to try to control behavior. But there's a limit to what you can do with those things, because the more regulations you have, the worse your economy gets, and it lowers economic activity, and all sorts of problems result from that. This is what we've seen in all these countries that have tried these centralized, controlled, planned societies, right? We saw this with Scandinavia. We've seen this in China. We've seen this all over the place. And what ends up happening is they end up having to scale those things back. What's changed is that this idea, modern monetary theory, this idea that you can print all the money you need if you have a central bank and you control your own currency.
It is the key to all of this.
It is the key to everything, because if you can print as much money as you need to reward companies for doing the things that you want them to do, well, then you don't need to worry about, well, can I really raise taxes enough to reward the right companies? Can I really increase regulations enough? What about economic activity? What about tax revenue? I have to worry about all these different things. A modern monetary theorist doesn't worry about tax revenue. Who cares? I can just print all the money I need. So they're not concerned about that. So that's the key to understanding this whole thing. They're controlling the economy, not just through regulations, not just by punishing businesses they don't like, not just by controlling the economy and providing people with subsidies, but by doing that on an exponential level, because they have the ability to print as much money as they want. That's the key to everything. If you can print as much money as you want, then you're the one who's in control of the entire economy. It's essentially imagine a marketplace where you have car dealerships, they're all competing for customers, and there's one person in the world who has more money than everyone else and loves to buy cars, buys an infinite amount of cars, is willing to buy as many cars as you're willing to produce. Who do you care about then? All these other people that have enough money to buy 1 or 2 cars, or the person who has so much money they can buy every car on the lot? You're going to produce cars for that person. Right. You're not going to produce cars for everybody else. That's what's happened here. They've taken over the whole economy through modern monetary theory. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. So this is 21st century socialism. This is what we're up against. It's not the old Soviet style. They're going to come and confiscate all of the factories and the means of production. This is the way that they're going to do it. And I think that we, with Stopping Socialism, have been on the cutting edge of figuring all of this out. The pieces just start falling into place when we were looking at this. It started with like the Green New Deal, and then the way that modern monetary theory fit into that just worked perfectly. And now the way that all fits into this system, to me, it's clear as day that this is their roadmap. This is the way that they're going to invoke 21st century socialism. And it is on us to basically expose it and to get the truth out there and to basically try to prevent this from happening and the whole global reset of the world economy. Justin, any last words before we sign off for this episode?
I think the one last thing that I would add is that this whole concept that we're talking about here of 21st century socialism, one of the things that's so important, it's going to be even more important as the years go by, is that the right has to understand this, because you can't just start going back to the Soviet Union and Venezuela and all these examples of it failing in the past and only relying on that. I mean, you still need to talk about those things, and we do all the time, but you can't just rely on that, because these people aren't operating under the same rules, okay? Because they control the money. They're able to do this. Now, Venezuela printed lots of money. That's true. But Venezuela had totally different constraints. They didn't have the same kind of central banking system that modern monetary theorists want. And so they believe that just like the Federal Reserve Bank can just issue all this currency, essentially just created out of thin air, that's what they believe is the key to fixing all of these other problems. And so they don't look at Venezuela and they don't see that as a problem for them. They believe they're operating under totally different rules. And so we have to accept that, and we have to critique it on those terms. Otherwise, they're going to be able to turn around and say, Venezuela, like that's not what we're doing. Soviet Union, we're not confiscating anyone's property. We're not taking anything away from anyone. We're just giving to the good guys and not giving to the bad guys. You have to rethink this thing, because this is the key battleground going forward into the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're going to be covering it from here on out. Go to stoppingsocialism.com. You'll find a lot of articles on this, and we'll continue to produce articles on that. You can find videos like this on YouTube, Stopping Socialism TV. Facebook, we post all of our stuff on Facebook. Just look up Stopping Socialism. We also have an Instagram and a Parler account in case you're interested. Justin, where can the people find you?
At Justin T. Haskins on Facebook and Twitter.
All right. Thank you all. We'll talk to you later.